Hello guys and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be me attempting to make a gear guide slash how to build your character guide. So basically I kind of want to teach you guys how to maximize your builds and how to actually make the most out of what your account actually got in terms of summons. Because sometimes you're going to pull a 5-star character and a 5-star weapon, and those two are going to force you to take a different build, otherwise you're not going to be as strong as you could have been. So let's go over my personal case. My personal case is Katsing. Katsing is a unit that has a lot of strengths in her actual skills, which means that you would benefit a lot on an electro damage build. But I pulled Aquila Favonia, which is a weapon that has as a substat physical damage bonus. So should you have a little bit of damage bonus from everywhere? The answer is no. First, let's go over why you shouldn't take attack percentage on every single thing you have on your artifacts. So first of all, each artifact has different stats they can obtain, and we're going to go over which ones you should actually get. But one thing you need to know, attack percentage scales off of your base attack. Your base attack will show on the description on your character, okay? But you need to know that your attack percentage is going to scale off of two base attacks. It's going to be your character's base attack that scales with level, so the higher level she gets, the higher the base attack. Same goes for weapons, because weapons also give base attack. So these two base attacks combined is going to give your total base attack, and that's where the attack percentage is going to scale off of, okay? But one thing you need to know, attack is something that you're always going to have, which means, I'm going to give you an example. Imagine you get 100 overall percentage of attack percent on your pieces. That's all going to scale off of my base attack. But what about other types of damage? Physical damage, electro damage. Yes, that's also going to have a multiplier that comes from attack. But the problem is, when you increase your physical damage, is a raw multiplier over whatever attack stat you may provide it. But attack percentage scales off of a flat stat, which means that every time you have a piece of gear that kind of goes like this one, the Aquila Favonia, that gets physical damage, that means that I should get another piece with physical damage because that's going to add to this. Imagine I get a goblet now with physical damage and it's 50% physical damage. I'm going to have 87.7 physical damage on my unit, and that's also going to scale off of whatever attack stat that I have. So if you go for raw percentage of attack, you're not maximizing your damage because you're not maximizing whatever damage can come off of your skills or your basic attacks. So that's basically what you want to build. Every time you have a sword that has a secondary stat that goes a certain build, you should always stick to that build. For example, now that I have Aquila Favonia, I should go for a physical damage build on Katsing. Why? Because it's going to be more maximized. It's going to make my damage the best it can be. But that could still be a bit more confusing, so I'm going to give you specifics. What should you actually build for a physical damage bonus build? Okay, let's go over the artifacts and what you can get, okay? First of all, feathers. Feathers actually have attack in them, so if you have the option to have a yellow tier feather, always go for a yellow tier feather, because purple tier feathers are just going to have less attack to provide for your team, and honestly, purple gear doesn't have 4 stats in the baseline. You also have yellow gear that only has 3 stats, but you mostly want to aim for those yellow pieces that have 4 stats to begin with, because it's one more roll to the substats, okay? So basically, when it comes down to feathers, you want the highest level feather as you can possibly have. Another thing you might want to start speccing into pieces that have crit rate on their subs. Why? Because ultimately, in the end of the end game, when everyone has the best gear possible, people are always going to run a crit damage necklace, or in this case, a crit damage helmet, okay? Why? Because in this game, you either go for a crit rate helmet, or you go for crit damage on subs, or the other way around, crit damage helmet with crit chance on subs. You always want to maximize your damage, and crit rate is a tricky thing. Right now, as it stands, crit rate helmets are going to be the most wanted thing you can have, right? But in the end game, when you farm enough good gear, when you get those pieces that roll high into crit rate, there's going to be a cap. Crit rate only goes to 100%, and anything other than that is going to be provided by crit damage. Also, not all characters need to have 100% crit rate. Just having overall 80% crit rate or something, it's always better to have. Why? Because in this game, every character hits a lot of times. So if you miss one crit, it's really not going to mess up your DPS too much. You actually want to sacrifice a little bit of crit rate so you can actually buff that crit rate with food. So in the end, you're always going to want a crit damage helmet. But for now, my advice is if you get a yellow tier crit rate helmet, use it. Especially if your weapon substat is not crit rate, because those are the main sources of percentage crit rate that you can get from pieces. Other than that, you can only get it on substats. So your main build is going to be a helmet with crit chance or crit damage if you have enough crit chance. You want a goblet with whatever damage you're focusing on. If your weapon has physical damage, you go for a physical damage goblet so it adds to whatever your weapon gives. And this goes for characters' passives as well. A lot of characters have physical damage bonuses, electro damage bonus on their passives. You always want to benefit your character that has those passives. Go read on your character. If your character gets a boost of electro damage, maybe you want to provide him with electro damage build because you're going to enhance that type of damage more. Because electro damage, physical damage, hydro damage, those are things that always get added on top of whatever damage you already have. While attack percentage always going to scale from one flat stat. So the only piece you really want to have with attack percentage is going to be your hourglass. So let's go over the right side equipment that we can get. So helmet, you want crit rate or crit damage if you have enough crit rate. Goblet, you want all the damage that you're focusing on, meaning if you want to go for electro damage, you get electro damage here. If you want to go for physical damage, you go for physical damage, hydro damage, etc. Whatever is strong to your character. Some characters with high base attack would benefit with attack here, and you would kind of go for a hybrid build. See attack percentage on your goblet kind of as a hybrid build. It's not really good, but attack makes physical damage, electro damage, any damage scale a bit more, but still is not efficient. So in the end, you really just want to focus on one type of damage, but if you want to run attack percentage, is not the end of the world. You just know that you're not going to be as strong as you could possibly be. So that's basically it. Crit rate on helmets, whatever damage you need on goblets, and attack percentage on hourglasses, because hourglasses only really get attack percentage. Other than that, it gets HP, gets defense, gets other types of stats like energy recharge. But in terms of DPS, you always want attack here because there's no more attack stats other than elemental mastery and stuff like that. But those are for something else. Those are for elemental reactions. We're talking about gear to make your individual character strong, not really talking about elemental masteries, because if you're going to have a character with elemental mastery, of course you want elemental masteries here. So your feather, you want it to have as high attack as possible and the best subs as possible, but that goes for everything. Your flower is probably your most flexible piece because having a purple flower has no issues, especially if your purple flower has very, very good stats. This one's not a good example, but the thing is, if your purple flower rolled really high and rolled well, you don't have to go for a yellow flower that rolled worse, right? Yellow flowers will provide you with flat HP, which is good for survivability, but there's no much really of a point. So if you want to have a worst piece of gear in your whole build, I would say allow the flower to be that piece if the substats are nice, because the flower is going to be that one piece of gear that's going to be reliable on those. Well, there's two pieces of gear, but flower can be purple and have good stats. While the feather needs to be the highest tier you possibly can get it, so you can get the maximum base attack possible from it. So that's basically what it comes down to gear. You always want to have crit rate, crit damage, whatever damage you can have, and attack percentage. And that's basically how you gear your units. And then according to those weapons you can always choose the build. Because for right now, my build is not proper because I've been trying to get a goblet for physical damage for the longest time. I just can't let myself drop it. And the crit damage necklace for me, it's still pretty bad because I need to buff with food. So my Kitsing is not there, is not completely well built because I'm still trying to farm the gear. But we're going to find this in the beginning. Honestly, if you have to, go for purple gear. While you don't have pieces of gear already upgraded, always try to get that one character that has the proper build, because Trust me, you're gonna feel the damage coming through, okay? And then play to whatever strengths. Physical damage is a type of damage that will enhance your normal attack damage and your charge attack damage, which means that if you have a physical damage build, you need to spam those attacks. You need to go for attack strings and charge attacks to actually make the most of that build. If you have electro damage, you probably want to play around your cooldowns and get some energy recharge on either, the resonance, the team resonance, or you just get it on substats. You always want to play to the strengths of that character. In this case, for Quill of Favonia, I really just want to focus on a damage goblet, on a physical damage goblet. This weapon is already providing me tons of base attack and physical damage, and I want to go for a crit rate helmet and and an attack percentage hourglass, and that's basically how it goes. Now let's talk over what gear sets can actually provide to your team. So gear sets are also very, very important because gear sets are that extra thing that adds to whatever damage you have. There's multiple sets in the game, each domain having its own set of gear. Most of the domains are going to have gear sets that are going to benefit damage types. For example, you have one for Anemo, you have one for Electro, and this is going to go basically for all elements. Right now, I don't think we have one for a Hydro, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure we actually don't have one for Hydro, but we have one for Geo, we have one for Anemo, we have one for Thunder and Fire up here. So that's basically that in terms of elements. So I think Water actually has a little bit of a downside here, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure Water doesn't have a set. Don't get me wrong, but as you can see, even physical damage has a set. So for example, ultimately, for my build on Katsing, I would probably want to go for a Bloodstained Chivalry, at least a 2 set, because it's going to enhance my physical damage. This physical damage is going to go with the goblet physical damage and my weapon's physical damage. So that's gonna all add up to a massive stat, and that's gonna scale off of whatever damage we were already doing with the base attack and attack percentage that we get from the goblet and from the hourglass. And that's basically how you want to build. If you want to go for electro damage, build everything electro damage. If you want to go for physical damage, build everything physical damage. If you start splitting that damage, it means that I'm going to get 25 from here, and then I get 50% electro damage from somewhere else, and those things are not going to go together. Hybrid builds are not going to be the most optimized builds that you can do. So you always want to focus on one type of damage. Let's go over one example. For example, for Razor. Razor is one of those units that you really just want to build on physical damage build because he has a lot of things that enhance his normal basic attacks. One thing we also need to know is that, for example, sets like Gladiator don't really boost all types of physical damage. For example, I can show you on my Katsing. My Katsing has on her artifact, she has Gladiator. Gladiator says using a weapon like a sword, claymore, and polearm increases normal attack damage, which means that my charge attack damage is not going to work that well, which means that, for example, if I was to use Gladiator, it's not the best build for charged attack spam, which is something that Katsing is very, very good at. So there's a lot of things that you need to play around, and honestly, just read. Because physical damage it involves normal attack and normal attack damage, but not all sets are going to benefit both of these damage types. So you always really need to pay attention and know that every single character, attack and charged attack, going to scale off of physical damage. Any other ability that triggers a colored number is going to be influenced by the type damage, the element damage. So for those, you're going to want electro, water, hydro, cryo, whatever damage type that character has. And that's how you boost your damage. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It took me a while to kind of understand how characters work. That's why my Katsing is in such a weird build right now. But I'm kind of working on fixing stuff. For example, my Venti, I'm building him DPS currently. He's doing pretty good. I'm trying to focus his Anemo damage with an Anemo damage goblet and the Anemo set. And that's basically it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys. And yeah, pay attention to the substat of your weapon, and that's gonna basically dictate what build you should go for, because every time you get those stats and you don't really spec into them, you will do damage, but it's not going to be as much damage as you could possibly do. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.